The fluorescent lights in the cramped office buzzed overhead as Chen stared at her laptop screen, the cursor blinking mockingly in the email she'd been trying to write for the past 20 minutes. Outside her tiny cubicle, the sounds of Hartwell and Associates continued around her, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, her coworkers discussing weekend plans she couldn't afford to make. At 27, Maya had been working as a secretary for 3 years, barely making ends meet in her studio apartment. Her paycheck covered rent, groceries, and student loan payments with almost nothing left over. She'd grown used to declining invitations, wearing the same 5 work outfits in rotation, and spending Friday nights with instant ramen and Netflix. But this Friday was different. This Friday was her high school reunion. Maya's phone buzzed with another text from her former classmate Jennifer. "Can't wait to see everyone. Bringing my fiancé's a doctor. What about you, Maya? Still single?" Maya's stomach twisted. She'd been dreading this question for weeks. In high school, she'd been the girl everyone expected to succeed, valedictorian, debate team captain, the one voted most likely to change the world. Now she was a secretary, living paycheck to paycheck, still single, still struggling. The idea had come to her during a particularly lonely lunch break. She'd seen an advertisement online, a service that provided companions for social events, professional, respectful, well-dressed gentlemen available for dinners, parties, and special occasions. It seemed like the perfect solution to her reunion problem. $500. It was more money than Maya had ever spent on something so frivolous. Money she'd scraped together from 3 months of skipped lunches and walking to work instead of taking the bus. But the thought of facing her classmates' pitying looks alone was unbearable. The website was professional looking, with photographs of handsome men in expensive suits. Maya had selected someone named Alex, tall, dark-haired with kind eyes and a genuine smile. His profile described him as cultured, well-educated, and experienced in high society events, perfect for helping her maintain some dignity at the reunion. Now, sitting in her cubicle on Friday afternoon, Maya felt a mixture of excitement and terror. She'd arranged to meet Alex at a coffee shop near the hotel, where the reunion was being held. In just 3 hours, she'd be walking into her high school gymnasium on the arm of a man who looked like he belonged in a magazine. At exactly 6 o'clock, Maya pushed through the glass doors of Caf Luna, her hands trembling slightly. She'd spent her entire lunch break shopping for a new dress, a simple black number that had cost her half a week's grocery budget but made her feel almost elegant. Her usually practical ponytail had been replaced with carefully curled hair that framed her face. The cafe was busy with the evening rush, filled with the chatter of conversations and the hiss of the espresso machine. Maya scanned the room nervously, looking for someone who matched Alex's photo. Her eyes settled on a man sitting alone at a corner table, and her breath caught. He was even more handsome in person, tall and broad, with perfectly styled dark hair, and wearing a charcoal suit that probably costs more than Maya's monthly rent. He was reading something on his phone, his brow slightly furrowed in concentration. There was an air of quiet confidence about him that made Maya's stomach flutter with nerves. This was definitely out of her league, but she'd already paid the money. Taking a deep breath, Maya approached his table. "Alex," she said softly. He looked up, and Maya was struck by his eyes. They were a warm brown, intelligent and surprisingly gentle. For a moment, he seemed confused. Then his expression shifted to something Maya couldn't quite read. "You must be Maya," he said, standing smoothly. His voice was deeper than she'd expected, cultured and warm. "It's a pleasure to meet you." Maya felt a flutter of relief. He seemed nice, professional. Maybe this wouldn't be as awkward as she'd feared. "Thank you for doing this," she said as they sat down. "I know it's probably not your usual type of arrangement." Something flickered across Alex's face. "Actually, this is quite different from my usual Friday evenings. Tell me about this event we're attending." Maya launched into an explanation about the reunion, about her classmates and their successes, about her own insecurities. Alex listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and making encouraging comments. He had a way of making her feel heard, as if her concerns were valid and important. You know, he said gently, success isn't just measured by job titles or bank accounts. You mentioned you work for a law firm. That's important work. And you've been supporting yourself, paying off student loans, building a life. That takes strength. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. When was the last time someone had spoken to her like this? Not her boss, who barely acknowledged her existence. Not her family, who constantly asked when she was going to find a real career. This stranger, this man she was paying to pretend to care about her, was showing her more kindness than she'd received in months. We should probably head to the hotel, Maya said, glancing at her watch. The reunion starts at 7. Alex nodded, but as they stood to leave, his phone rang. Maya watched his expression change as he answered. Sterling here, he said, his voice suddenly crisp and authoritative. What do you mean the Henderson contract fell through? I thought we had an agreement. Maya's blood ran cold. Sterling, she knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. Alexander Sterling was the CEO of Sterling Enterprises, one of the largest companies in the state. His face had been on the cover of Business Weekly just last month. Alexander Sterling continued his conversation, his voice calm but commanding. As he discussed millions of dollars in corporate mergers, Maya sank back into her chair, her mind reeling. When he hung up, he looked at Maya with an expression that was part apology, part amusement, and part something else she couldn't identify. I suppose I should explain, he said, sitting back down across from her. You're Alexander Sterling, Maya whispered. The CEO, the billionaire. I am, he confirmed. And I'm guessing you didn't actually hire me through an escort service. Maya's face burned with embarrassment. There must have been some mistake. I paid $500 to rent a boyfriend for tonight, and they gave me your number. I thought you were, oh God, this is mortifying. Alexander, she couldn't think of him as Alex anymore, leaned back in his chair, and to Maya's surprise, he was smiling, not mocking or cruel, but genuinely amused. You know what I think happened, he said. My assistant, Margaret, has been trying to set me up for months. She's constantly suggesting, I need to meet someone normal, and wouldn't put it past her to have arranged this somehow. Maya stared at him. You think your assistant pretended to be an escort service? Margaret is very resourceful when she wants to be, and she's been increasingly concerned about my social life, or lack thereof. Alexander's smile widened. She probably thought this would be a good way to force me into a situation where I couldn't hide behind work. But the money, Maya began. I'll make sure it's returned to you, Alexander said gently. Though I have to say, this is the most interesting evening I've had in years. Maya felt her world tilting. So you don't actually do this for a living? No, I spend most of my evenings in boardrooms or my home office, reviewing contracts and planning mergers. Tonight was supposed to be more of the same until I got your call. He paused, studying her face. The question is, what do we do now? Maya looked down at her hands, feeling foolish and small. Here she was, a secretary who'd spent her grocery money to hire fake companionship, sitting across from one of the most powerful men in the city. The irony wasn't lost on her. I should probably just go home, she said quietly. This is too embarrassing. I'll make up some excuse for missing the reunion. Or, Alexander said, his voice gentle but firm, we could go to your reunion together. Not because you hired me, not because of any arrangement, but because I'd genuinely like to accompany you. Maya looked up sharply. Why would you want to do that? Because in the past hour, you've been more honest and genuine than anyone I've spoken to in months. Because you're intelligent and kind, and you have the courage to face something that terrifies you. Because you deserve to walk into that room with your head held high, regardless of your job title or bank account. Maya felt tears welling up again. I can't ask you to do that. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. You're right, I don't know you well. But I'd like to, and I certainly don't owe you anything, but maybe, just maybe, we could help each other tonight. Maya looked into his warm brown eyes and saw something she hadn't expected, loneliness. Despite his success, his wealth, his power, Alexander Sterling looked as isolated as she felt. Okay, she said softly. But I have one condition. Name it. Tonight, you're just Alex. Not the CEO, not the billionaire. Just a man who's kind enough to help someone get through a difficult evening. Alexander. Alex smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Deal. But I have a condition too. What's that? Tonight, you're not just a secretary, you're Maya Chen. The woman who is brave enough to face her fears, who works hard to build her life, who has the strength to be honest about her struggles. That's worth more than any job title. As they walked toward the hotel together, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope, not just for the evening ahead, but for the possibility that sometimes, when you least expect it, the universe sends you exactly what you need. Even if it costs $500 and starts with a mistaken identity.